Well, we begin with politics, where earlier in the week, the Independent National Electoral Commission postponed the governorship and State House of Assembly elections by 1 week. The election, earlier scheduled for Saturday, 11 March, will now hold on Saturday, 18th of March. The Commission said in a statement by its spokesperson, Festus Okoye. The statement said the postponement was to make for adequate timing to reconfigure the bimodal voter accreditation system ahead of the governorship and state assembly polls. The Presidential Election Tribunal has restrained the Commission from tampering with all sensitive materials, including the beavers used in the conduct of the presidential election, following the request by the candidates of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and the Labour Party (LP), Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi, respectively, who rejected the outcome of the presidential election. Well, joining me to discuss this in the studio is Nelson Kujimi, political analyst and election observer. Good evening.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
It's good to have you on the show.
Yep.
Now, let's see how you're taking this idea of election postponement and what impact you think it will have on this candidate and their party.
Well, thank you very much. We all know what caused the postponement, except if we are trying to be clever by half. And it is the fact that one of the parties or two of the parties that lost the presidential election, in which Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was declared the winner by the Independent National Electoral Commission, went to court to restrain INEC from, touching or tampering with the sensitive electoral materials. And INEC, knowing fully well that she had an election to conduct in 2 weeks' time, now approached the courts, stating the reasons why she has to, to touch those sensitive materials, most especially the beavers. And after availing the courts with the facts, I think the court saw reason with, her prayers and granted it the right to go and, reconfigure the beavers machine. Even before now, we used to have the smart card reader, and we all know that the smart card reader has to be reconfigured for subsequent elections after being used for a previous one. So the same thing has happened in this case. And to be able to reconfigure over 176,000 beavers machine, INEC came out clearly and told the whole world that they will require a minimum of 5 days. And if you recollect that order for them to go ahead and reconfigure the machine was given on a Wednesday, which made it impossible for that 5 days, to be met, because they just had a Thursday and a Friday, meaning that they had just 2 days to reconfigure the machine. And INEC, in its wisdom, when the management sat down and looked at all the available indices, decided that in the interest of ensuring that they conduct the elections in tandem with the provisions of the Electoral Act, that the most responsible thing to do was to shift the election by 1 week. And that is exactly what they have done. A lot of commentators have gone to town with the intention to mislead, and incite Nigerians. But, I think we must commend Nigerians for, recognizing that, look, this was the most logical and rational thing to do. That no matter what, some other persons come to say in order to confuse and mislead us, we are not falling for it. Because the beavers machine does not recognize whether you are voting for party or party B. What it does is to accredit you. Well, even if you get the ballot paper, maybe at the end of the day, you even thumbprint for 5 parties at the same time, or just drop the ballot paper into the ballot box. The beavers machine does not know that.
Nelson, a lot of argument have been pouring in about this beavers reconfiguration. Some IT experts are saying there's no need for the reconfiguration. What do you make of this?
Oh, I think they are speaking from the point of ignorance. Because it's a fact, like I just told you, I took you historically. I took you down history lane. And the history lane is that in 2019, we had a smart card reader. And what the smart card reader does is to authenticate a voter, that the person standing before the presiding officer is the owner of the PVC that he or she has brought. And because of the fact that the smart card reader was being shortchanged, where the smart card reader made provisions for incidence form where the smart card reader cannot capture, biometrically the voters at the polling station. A lot of times people just boycotted the incidence form, and all sorts of malpractices were allowed to take place. But with the BVAS machine, the rule is that if the BVAS does not authenticate you, then you have no right to vote. We have all seen that part of the fallout of the use of the BVAS was what happened in the Osun State gubernatorial election, where the number of votes counted was far beyond the number of people accredited by the BVAS. And what does that tell us? It tells us that there was overvoting, that there was irregularity. Whether the ballot papers were stuffed into it or they were packed into it, the BVAS has shown that, say, for example, 90 people were accredited. So how can 110 or 120 vote? So it means an electoral malpractice occurred. And that was why the Osun State Gubernatorial Election Petition Tribunal nullified the election of Governor Demola Adeleke of the PDP. So the people who are saying they don't need to reconfigure the BVAS, I think they need to go and get understanding of what the BVAS machine is all about. All
right, let's talk about INEC. There are still questions about INEC, about trust, credibility, and competence concerning as regards to the idea of backing up data on cloud. People are saying they can't trust INEC to do that. What do you make of this in terms of enlightenment and all of that?
Well, I am not surprised, and I won't be disappointed if people say they don't trust INEC, because of the fact that you cannot give what you don't have. A lot of these persons talking don't even have trust in themselves. For you to be able to give out trust to others, you must first of all have that quality of trust, that virtue of trust in yourself. So a lot of people who come out and say we don't trust INEC, they are speaking for themselves. They are exhibiting what they represent and what they stand for. Because so far as the 2023 presidential election is concerned, that election was free, fair, successful, and credible. And why do I say this? INEC has conducted an election. They were quoting provisions of the Electoral Act, and the provisions of the Electoral Act makes it very clear that the right to determine how they want to transmit election results lies solely with INEC. INEC is not, stereotyped to either electronically or manually. It is left for INEC to transmit. And one fact you cannot take away from INEC's performance in this election is that this election took place in over 176,000 polling units. Those polling units had party agents and security operatives in which the party agents signed the result sheets, meaning that they consented to the free and fairness of the process at that level. And from from the polling station level, the results were gathered to the ward level. A number of polling stations make up a ward. And at the ward level, you had party agents again and security operatives who also, attested to the fact that the result that has been collated from the various polling stations, is what we are entering into the order form. And they all signed, and, got a copy. At every stage, party agents as well as security operatives, according to provisions of the Electoral Act, they must get a copy of results. From the ward level, it now graduated to the local government level, where we also had party agents and security operatives. At these levels, we had INEC officials who are assigned, to take up responsibility at those levels. Is it at the polling units? You have the presiding officer, the PO. At the ward level, you had the ward collation officer of INEC. At the local government level, you had the local government collation officer. He signed these results that has been collated from the wards up to the local government level, and parties agents sign and they get a copy before now transferring it to the state collation center, where parties also have agents who did the same thing.
We just have to take